So some of you lot are already bored of FC25. I've had several comments now saying, oh, they can't get into a save. I'm finding it a bit boring. What should I do? Well, in today's video, I'm hopefully going to give you a few tips to try and help you out and get you back on track with career mode and hopefully having a good time. Now, I'm going to base some of these tips on some realism. I'm also going to base some of them, most importantly, on just having fun. And most of all, we're going to try and make the save interesting. We're going to try and get you immersed in it as much as humanly possible. And hopefully, some of these tips will work for you. So you finally sat down, you've got yourself a brew, you've booted up the game because you've got a big save in mind. You're ready. You watched Yorkie's video on what saves to do and you have a plan. You're going into this one with this save being the rest for the year. You're excited for it. You are ready, and then before you know it, you're halfway through the season, you're top of the table by 15 points, your striker has 52 gold contributions, and you've already won the Champions League, and you're feeling a little bit bored. And this is probably the main reason why people fall off of the game and career modes is it's too easy and you make it too easy on yourselves. If we're being honest as a base, FC25 is a very easy game. They don't make it difficult for you. Career mode is basically you have money, sign whoever the hell you want. And when the game is easy, that's when I get bored the most. And I can feel you. There is a balance here that we have to find between too difficult and too easy. And right now, in my opinion, the game is too easy. We play on difficulty levels that make the game even easier for ourselves, and we can just freely sign whoever we want, whenever we want. So what we need to do is try and put some rules in place. Now, these are some of the things that I have done when playing career mode that have massively helped me. They've helped me on the channel, because when you play this game all year round and you don't fall off after 1 month, it is very difficult without having some stuff in place. And one of the key things to making the game not easy for me is definitely the transfers and being strict on yourself when it comes to the transfer business that you do. I find it's way too easy for someone to go out there, sign the same players they've signed before, sign players that they know are just world-class players or wonder kids for the future that are going to be absolutely balling in a few seasons' time. And it just makes the game a little bit repetitive and a little bit too easy. If you could put some strict stuff in place when it comes to the transfers, who you bring in, how you bring them in, the amount of money that you're willing to spend as well on a player, I find that's key. One thing I've come up with recently is the idea of having 3 players untouchable in your team. So there's 3 players that you can set your stall down every season and go, this guy is not leaving the club, I want him here. But you can only do it for 3 players. The rest you have to listen to offers for bigger teams. Now, speaking of bigger teams, we do have to be realistic with the term bigger teams. If I'm in League 2, I'm in League 1, let's say, and Leeds United are the Championship coming, Southampton in the Premiership coming, they're a big team relative to where you are. So it's all about what your team is, where they're at, and the value of that player to one of these clubs that is bigger. Don't be going, oh, I'm in League 1 and Man City hasn't come in for him, so I don't have to sell him. You really have to force yourself to do stuff that you don't want to do. I just can't explain enough how fun it is when you have League 2's top goal scorer, Elliot List, leave on deadline day for a record fee, and you're scrambling around to try and find yourself a new striker. Putting yourself in these positions might sound insane, but it genuinely rejuvenates a career mode. It makes it so much more fun because you have to think more on your feet, and the game never really employs you to do that. The game basically does make life easy for you, and I feel like it's up to you to make it more difficult. Putting some of these things in place, you will definitely find that there's nothing better than losing one of your star players. This sounds crazy, maybe I like to be punished. There's nothing better than losing one of your star players and having to find somebody else, and that player then ending up being a star for you, and you would have never made that decision. You would have stuck with Elliot List for the rest of the career mode if it wasn't for you putting yourself in that position. I found that I've used tons of players that I wouldn't normally use just by doing this. And that's another thing. When you're looking for players, maybe only use the scout system. That's something I've done for a long time now, and it leads me to find players that I wouldn't normally go for. And that's probably the biggest key. It's changing up how you play. It's changing up how you're going to view building the team because you're going for different players. It's so easy nowadays for us to load up the game. You know what some of the best wonder kids in the world are and that you can get them for a cheap price. But in reality, would they join your club? Would they come to the team that you are in the league you're in? It just sometimes doesn't make sense. So I definitely think being stricter on yourself when it comes to transfer dealings is something you need to do. And I know it gets more difficult as you go through the leagues because there's a lot of money. This game genuinely, once you're in the Premier League, it just chucks money at you. So maybe set yourself a budget. I've done it with Tottenham in the career mode on the channel. Daniel Levy's been throwing money at me left, right, and centre. I'm not going to lie. I think we had 350 million at one point. I know Tottenham don't have that. I know they're not going to spend that even though they have that is what I should say. So don't do that yourself either. When it comes to finding it more interesting and realistic, it's having to scrimp and scrape and pick up the player that you maybe wouldn't have wanted, but he ends up being great for the team anyway. When you build the team, you have to have a philosophy in my head. Whether that be the 4-4-2 of Mr. Sam Allardyce, or it be a gegenpressing tactic where you look at players that just have unbelievable stamina. Picking players on an attribute and a play style, again, changes the way you build the team, and I really like that. Look at Brighton, for example. You could do that style. You only sign players from these unknown teams for small fees, and then you end up making a fortune off them. We've seen teams have success with that. Look at Leicester with Kante and Mahrez and players like that. You could do that in your save. Instead of going for the big name players, look at these other leagues, these more obscure leagues than the top leagues in Europe. You know, look at Portugal, look at Holland, look at Belgium, and maybe you'll find some gems there that you could polish and make just world-class players. It's just going to be a lot more fun from my perspective. I think the way that we do things with the whole Wonder Kid system, it ruins saves for me. I find it too easy when I end up with a player who is nearly 90 overall 2 seasons in. A good way for you to kind of try and determine where you're going to sign players from and how you're going to sign them is the star system in the game. If you are a 1-star, 1.5-star team, you shouldn't be signing someone from a 3-star, 4-star team. So maybe only look at teams that are 2 stars, 2.5 stars. Never really go a full star above what your team is. This is a rough guideline, but it definitely does help, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to try and figure out what teams are viable. But again, at the end of the day, it really is all up to you. And if you have a fun time signing these great players, then that's fine. But this video is for those people who are struggling. I found especially this year that I really like to build into my philosophy, and that's really dictated and determined how I go about my business, how I go about my tactic, how I go about building the team. And all of that has just led to me being so much more immersed in the save and the players. And I don't just, there's this thing, right, in FC, and it's always been there, and it will always be there in the background, but it's the overall. And I know we have to have an overall, but I've used players that are 75 overall, and I've enjoyed them far better than an 80 plus. Because of the attributes that they excel in suits what I want from my team. So don't just plug in the players that have the better overall. Go with the player that you prefer. Actually read the player's attributes and go for a player that suits your attribute set, that makes you happy, that suits the style of football that you want to play, and you'll get a lot more joy, I find, out of the team building when you do that. You really will. Another thing that you can do that's quite fun is actually creating storylines. I don't know, create a scandal. Someone's gone out and been caught drinking, or someone was caught wearing your rival's club shirt. Use AI. There's such a wealth of AI on the internet now that you can use for these kind of things. Get some storylines in there. Get something wacky. Get something crazy. You know, player spotted out in a nightclub after you told him he couldn't go out. Make yourself bench him for a couple of games. These storylines you could come up with real life ones where a player refuses to train, I don't know, and then they want to move out of the club. You will soon find when you create these crazy little storylines that make you change how you build. And honestly, a lot of it does just come down to how you build in the team. I mean, the next part that we go over tip-wise will be huge, but this is another way that you can kind of create the team. You can create in AI now like an owner. And the owner can dictate to you what he wants you to do. And he might, I'm going to sell your star player. I don't care. you could do that. Set objectives for yourself. I think one thing that's not done in career mode a lot is moving teams. But you can go at the start of the season and say, all right, I didn't get Champions League football. The board wanted Champions League football. I'm out. I'm gone. I have to look for a new job. Being strict on yourself is the key to that. You really have to just go, you can't then turn around and be like, oh, yeah, but you know, I did all right. I reached around the 16 of the cup. Surely the board would keep me. No, you're sacked. Pack your bags, get out the office, see you later, head down the leagues, take over somebody else. This is what you need to do. Putting yourself in those situations, although it would be awesome if EA did that, they're not going to. And that's not going to change anytime soon, if ever. So you're going to have to do that yourself. But using AI to set objectives, I've found, does make it a lot easier for you then to be strict and stick by them. But objectives don't have to be harsh. They don't have to be insane. They can be very simple, and it could just come down to where you should finish in the league. Or if a player scores a certain amount of goals, then he stays. If he doesn't, he leaves. You know, I've done it before. I'm like, if I get Champions League football, then I don't have to lose my star player. But if I don't have Champions League football, he's got to go because he wants to be playing Champions League football. Stuff like that is just going to go a long way to making you feel like the save is important and like you want to play it because you want to play out the next scenario of what happens. Now, I understand that none of this matters if you don't have it on the pitch, if the game isn't enjoyable on the pitch. And don't get me wrong, boys, I know that this game is hard to love, and I don't want to throw any shade towards anyone, but I've seen, okay, so people are playing it a little bit too easy. I did this for a long time. I played on an easy difficulty. I did not like losing. And I understand that there's a line. The game shouldn't be that difficult. You shouldn't be on your 8th controller this month because the game is that difficult. But it also shouldn't be that easy that you're top of the league with Southampton in Season 1. I do feel like I've thrown some shade Southampton's way. We could say Everton instead. We could say Manchester United. But regardless, the gameplay actually has to be difficult. I'm not saying to the point where you can't win games, but if you're not in a relegation battle and you're managing one of the newly promoted sides, where's the fun in that? Where is the fun? The struggle of trying to stay up is the fun. And unfortunately, it's just human nature for us to make things easier on ourselves because that's, of course, what you're going to do. But in this case, got to be a bit tougher. If you're winning 5 or 6-0 on World Class, go to Legendary. Now, if you struggle and you lose on Legendary, play a few games before you decide that you're going to change the setting. And also, there are so many sliders out there. For me personally, if I was recommending, I like Cutsies, I like Cookie Crusher. He updates a lot when it comes to the sliders. But there's tons on Operation Sports from other YouTubers. There is a wealth now of sliders out there that you can use that will change the way the game is and might make it more easy for you. And I really do understand that the gameplay is a difficult part of this because it changes so much patch by patch. But honestly, if you can find the sweet spot between difficult and you know, not too difficult, the gameplay can actually be a lot of fun this year. And who knows, eventually, maybe, just maybe, you can love the game again. Anyway, that's it for me. I just wanted to share some thoughts and some opinions. I mean, you guys have been showing so much love to the channel at the minute. If you haven't checked out some of the series and stuff, go and check them out. We are, oh boys, we are cooking right now. We're so close to 10k. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I think we'll do a Q&A, maybe. I don't know if people want to ask questions. I don't know. I'm not going to do a Q&A and answer 2 questions now, so let me know down below what you think. I hope we can kind of bring a little bit of joy and happiness towards career mode on this channel. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you guys having as much fun with the game as possible. I understand that I'm powering through this game year on year, but I think this year actually is not a bad one. I genuinely think this year is not too much of a bad one, and these ideas are stuff I've done over on YouTube for the past few years to try and keep me engrossed, because you know, when you gotta play it all year long, you know, this kind of stuff kind of helps keep me engrossed. But yo, I hope you enjoy the content. I appreciate you all. Road to 10k. Smash the sub button, hit the like button, boys. Man, much love. I will see you in the next video.